Let's look at the sort of the scope of your work. Now, obviously, you have a role at Endeavour Group, which you'll describe in a moment. My understanding really of the core of our conversation is the context is retailers have a huge amount of data or data, which in many cases is untapped. And it's a case of we're going to explore how you find the value in that data and what a transformation journey looks like to achieve that. But perhaps give us some backstory about EDG, which you describe as a $15 billion startup.
Yeah, so probably worth actually just describing what Endeavour Group is. So yes. It's probably one of the biggest secret companies, I guess, in Australia, in that nobody really necessarily knows the master brand, but people will have heard of Dan Murphy's and BWS, which are our kind of two core retail brands. We also operate 300 pubs, hotels across Australia. So yep. We're essentially the biggest hospitality company in Australia and potentially across the world.
I believe you came straight from one of those pubs this morning.
I did come
from a meeting.
I was not drinking at 11 o'clock this morning. Yeah. I was doing a presentation. Yep. But yeah, so we're a large retailer. And around about just under a year ago, we kind of spun off from Woolworths Group. So when we talk about being a $15 billion startup, we're a large company with a large number of people, a large amount of data. But we're also new enough to be entrepreneurial and to do things in a slightly different way to what a large traditional corporate would do. The way the business works is based around hospitality, is based around having fun. You want your customers to have fun, and you want your teams to have fun in their work environment. Our CEO, for instance, started work in Dan Murphy's with Dan Murphy kind of on the shop floor. So I think that kind of flows through into how the business operates as well.
And you essentially, my understanding is you have been on a transformation journey. You are on one, and it's far from complete. So perhaps talk to me about where you were, where you are, and where you're heading.
Yeah, so I joined the business 3 years ago. We set up a function called Endeavour X, which was essentially our digital transformation kind of incubator team.
Yep. That
pulled together the analytical resources, the tech resources, delivery resources, etc., across the business and brought them into one place. Okay. And one of the use cases that we, as part of that, was personalization, which is essentially a big data problem.
Yes, okay.
We were doing it in the context of digital transformation and the context of how we offer the relevant offers to customers.
Yep.
And at that point in time, we probably had around about 10 analysts. And I remember I recruited the head of analytics into our business. And I said to Rob when he joined that we'd probably get to about 20 or 25, maybe 30. And how do you feel about managing that? And he was quite comfortable. Now we're up to 90 to 100 in the analytics space. So we've gone on a massive ramp up over the last couple of years. Personalization has been the thing that we've kind of hung a lot of that recruitment off. But around about 6 months ago, we decided to spin off what we're calling data-led transformation as its own function within our strategy team.
Okay.
And that was the attempt really to go, well, we've put the foundations in place. We've got the talent, or we've got some of the talent we need in the business. But what are the really high-value use cases that we want to go after as a business? How do we actually make Endeavour a data-led business? How do we make decisions based on data rather than on gut feel? Or how do we bring those two together, I guess, across the empathy and understanding you get from kind of human input, and then the decisions you get from AI and computers, and bring the two together. And that resulted in us setting up this new function, which it's been on paper, it's been in place for 6 months. The reality is at the moment there's me plus 2 people.
Right.
And we're on a significant mobilization and scaling up strategy as we speak. So we're trying to get 40 people in by the end of this financial year and probably recruit another 60 in next year. Steve, who's the CEO, is a huge believer in data and its power to unlock the business basically and to help us on our transformation journey.
Where has his belief originated from?
Some of that from within Woolworths, and Woolworths have done, they've been on this journey for a bit longer than we have. But also exposure to things like we've been doing Harvard training over the last year or so and actually working with some world-class leaders from Harvard on what should a digital transformation look like, what are the big players overseas and here doing, and leveraging some of that understanding. So it's kind of he's been on that journey as well. And personalization unlocked. So we worked with an external partner. We built a personalization engine in about 9 months, start to finish, and it's delivering 8-figure numbers a year in terms of benefit. So it's a fairly significant...
Straight tangible
quantifiable
benefits.
Quantifiable sales benefits. And that's why we're, I guess, going again on other use cases, which potentially even deliver more value because they're much more focused on the back end parts of our business, our merchandising and operations, where there's some fairly significant levers you can pull. I think we're still scraping the surface on personalization, and I think it's probably an infinite journey in some respects. I think you can always, I guess, throw more data at it. You can always learn more about your customers. You can always understand what motivates them and put the right offers in front of them. You can expand across multiple channels. So we've started with marketing channels, email in the main, but expanding out into every time you log into Dan Murphy's app, every time you hit the website, you get personalized content and personalized offers for you. And then what we've also done, I guess, through that journey is understand what are the foundations that we need as well from a technical and capability perspective. So have we got the right platform? Have we got the right tools? Have we got the right people? And how do we start to then apply, I'm going to say those things, those people to different problems to solve across the business? So we were pretty conscious that what we didn't want to do was partner with somebody who then took all of that IP with them. We wanted to retain the capability and the individuals in the business after they left. So it was part building an engine, but part teaching people how to use that engine so they could then deploy on other things.
Let's get back to you in terms of, from a leadership perspective, it can't all be luck. Probably only 95%. So what's your role really in the simplest terms? How do you steer the ship?
Yeah, so I've always seen my role, even when I was kind of, I guess, on the tools, as being a translator between the business and analytics teams. So you normally, and a friend of mine talks about a consumption gap, which is you've got the business on one side of the bridge and you've got the analytics team on the other side of the bridge. So I've always seen my role as bringing people to the middle of the bridge or walking to the middle of the bridge myself and helping people translate and to work through, well, this is what the analytics are telling us. Okay, well, how does that work in a business context? My pet hate was always naive analytics. So somebody in the analytics team would do a piece of analytics, but the business would already know about it, or they'd know about it, but they didn't really know what to do next.
Right, okay.
And that's kind of, I guess, where I found myself back to now in some respects, which is, I don't produce any analytics. I don't actually own any of the inputs into how we do analytics. I actually own the outputs. So my job is to work with the business to identify what are the priority use cases that we want to go after, help them size and quantify those and work out how they would land a change in the business, then bring that back to the analytics teams and actually work cross-functionally across analytics, engineering, business users, marketing teams potentially even, and actually help and solve those problems. And then my job is to just unblock things. So, we build cross-functional teams to solve problems. And then I think it's the Steve Jobs adage, right? You basically put them in, you get out of the way and let them get on with it. And that's the way we try to operate. And then my job is when it gets stuck is to be the snowplow that kind of helps unblock those blockages.
There's a whole heap of challenges in there, but in terms of the key challenges within that, I think, again, you and I have done some sort of, preparation, and you talk about sort of supply and demand challenges, and, there's multiple opportunities, multiple case studies, but you've got, there's always scarce resource and how you deploy it. How do you tackle that? Just
to give you some context, when we first, so we've been up and running for 6 months now. And through that process, we've kind of gone quite widely across the business, not completely exhaustive, but we've gone as wide as we can do to go, okay, what are the problems that you want us to solve? And we identified 275 on the first pass of that. So if you put, say, 10 people on each of those, that's 2,750 people.
Sorry, the 275, how did you sort of curate those problems, or how did you procure them for the business?
So workshops, individual conversations, workshops, some work we'd done previously with external consultants as well, just to identify where the opportunity areas were. And then just, I guess, hard graft of going out and actually working with people on what their problems were and that they needed us to solve. So,
but sorry, you're essentially crowdsourcing without fear or favour problems, for want of a better word, across the organisation.
Without favour, there was quite a lot of fear. But that gave us, I guess, the baseline to go, what's the demand?
No favour whatsoever, just fear. Yeah.
But also to go, well, how do we prioritise these things? Because you're not going to bring in 2,000 people, right? Even in an organisation our size to do data science. So we pared that back and pared it back and got down to kind of 40, which we thought were really could move the dial. Because some of these are multi-million-dollar potential opportunities.